What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 3 of the Technician Podcast. I'm here with my friend Jake Haebich today. Known Jakey for a little bit now, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper on what he's about and what he's been through. So,
awesome. Thanks for having me, mate. Stoked to be here. It's nice to have a day off and have a chat to you again. It's awesome.
Thanks for welcoming me to this workplace here, man. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's good. We're at Inbox at the moment at Cotton Tree, so we've got the beach behind us and just had a nice coffee and feeling good.
Feeling real good, man. So I guess where we'd like to start is sort of talk about your childhood, where you grew up and sort of, what got you to here essentially.
Yeah, okay. Well, I grew up on a farm out at Federal, which is Noosa hinterland.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
If you've heard of that. So I think we're on about 60 acres there. And grew up on motorbikes and raced BMX and played soccer. So I was just into my sports a fair bit. And basically was pretty great childhood, and then I got to 12 and then things went a little bit south. So my dad passed away and my parents got divorced before that and all that stuff happened. So we moved into Pomona next, into just like a small house, which was a lot different to what we were first in. And then, grinding my way basically through school.
Yeah,
that was it.
That's a lot to deal with at that sort of age too. I guess asking a question around that, like, do you remember how you sort of dealt with that at the time?
Not really, because I was so young. It was just grinding through it and just trying to stay positive. And then I'm realising now, like, I thought you could fill that gap of not having a father. And I'm finding it, like, now that I'm older and I think about it more, you miss that person that is fully on your side and is backing you the whole way. Because I've had like incredible mentors and stuff, and they fill that gap, but at the end of the day, they're not going to be there if you, fall hard enough that they don't want to help you out, sort of thing.
Yeah, of course.
That makes sense.
And I guess then, do you feel like your mum had to try to fill that position as well? With
and she did. She did an amazing job.
Yeah, that's cool.
Very loving and protecting, and took us to motocross and all that stuff, which she probably didn't want to do.
Yeah. Because
there's a lot of injuries and probably a few concussions there as well.
Yeah, she got a bit worried about you, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So she obviously stepped up, and you guys are very close because of that experience that you had to go through together.
Yeah, of course. So called her before for Mother's Day.
Nice.
So you're going to have to call your mum after this.
I'm going to have to, man. I messaged her, but that's not good enough, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess then that's obviously put you on a trajectory to where you are now with your life. Like, is there a reason why? I remember you speaking about this. Like, we've talked about this personally because we have known each other for a little bit now. But you doing now what you're doing, is that a lot to do with what you went through with your dad?
I think I get a lot of my drive from that. Like, whenever I'm in the gym or things get hard, I just think about like making dad proud, mum proud, because dad did quite well with what he did. And that's driven me through a lot of hard days and hard gym sessions and hard study days and stuff. So I always come back to that as motivation.
Yeah, you always think about that. And that's something that drives you through anything tough that you have to go through now, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then as I went through probably 16, 18, I used the gym to really burn off a lot of that bad energy that I had.
Dude, how important is the gym? Like, that's obviously played a huge role in your life.
Absolutely.
Talk about your path with that, because I know when we've talked is that you really struggled to put weight on and size, because you're naturally a pretty like skinny sort of dude. But you're a very strong individual, like you're stronger than me, man. And like you've always talked about how it's been such a tough road for you. But what sort of tips could you give to people that have to go through that same sort of thing that helped you get to where you are now?
Probably the biggest one is finding a good training partner.
Yep.
So I've been training with Adam Bryant, who you know, for probably 7 years now.
It's been that long.
Yeah,
right.
And before that, I had a few people like Josh Farrelly and Jack Duffy and a few other people, but I've always had a really good training partner the whole time, and that keeps you accountable to rock up and to push that little bit harder.
Yeah.
When I was in Brisbane for a year and had no training partner, I would go through a few different people, but just couldn't find one like Adam Bryant that was just there no matter what and then push you hard. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just finding a good training partner.
Yeah, of course. The
And
accountability factor was
exactly
the biggest part.
Just the accountability and just that extra push.
Yep.
Like they don't have to be stronger or smarter or whatever than you. They just have to rock up and push you, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's coming off the back of that. Like, I noticed that obviously you trained me for a bit there. Mate, thank you so much, obviously. But I don't think I've ever told you this. I might have. But your training and what we went through together when we were working at Rebel at the time, that changed me, dude. Like, you've had a huge impact on my life. And, you know, even if it was just as a... Like, obviously, we became mates first, but then we talked about how, like, I was ready to make a huge change, especially physically. But emotionally at the time, I was still struggling too, like mentally and stuff. So, and you helped me, you know, go on that path. Like, I lost... I think it was like 22 kilos or something.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And exactly what you said is that it's accountability. You know, there was days where I was like, oh, I can't be fucked. Like, obviously, everyone has that. But it was the, I don't want to let Jake down. It was the Friday check-ins. It was the, you know, oh, I just ate KFC. I'm not supposed to do that. You know, but I still made sure, worst case scenario, I was making sure it fit my macros and that sort of thing. And that's another thing, you know, if anyone's looking at, I find that in the fitness industry, as the more I learn about it, as I'm doing my cert, it's very hard to navigate. There's a lot of different opinions and like everyone's finding it's still really hard to train and lose weight, but it's a fairly simple formula, right? Like it doesn't have to be overly complicated.
No, it's very, very simple. Whether you're vegan or vegetarian or you eat meat or you carnivore, it's the same stuff. It's calories in, calories out, and then macros and micronutrients. It's very simple. And then whatever way of eating you like, you just have to know your macros and micros, and then you're good to go. Yeah,
and I guess if you had to give someone, you know, I guess almost like a little bit of a mini blueprint on, say there's someone that's really struggling, what are a few of the things that they could do to sort of get on the path to, okay, losing that weight or losing, because weight loss and fat loss is two different things, right? So if you could give them, say, the 3 best things to start doing now to get on that path, what would it be?
Well, it would first be finding that training partner.
So
start training, obviously.
Factor,
And then the second thing would be just cut sugar and cut it completely. Don't treat yourself and stuff, because the way sugar works is you have this bacteria that gets activated when you have sugar and then it craves it. But when you cut out sugar, that bacteria dies off and you won't get the cravings. Right. So the best way to drop sugar is just to cut it completely. Give it a few weeks and then you won't be craving it anymore.
I think I remember us doing that actually. Yeah, and that was a big factor, because I found that you're exactly right. The cravings were there. And as soon as you get rid of that, you're in the discipline, because the discipline would obviously be a big part of it, where everyone talks about, like, I'm never motivated, I'm never inspired. But I was never really motivated. It was just, I know today I have to train, because it was a habit that I built. And I remember you saying it's always going to be the habits that you build. And it's... Did you say it was like a certain amount of time for your habits to build as well, or you sort of just let it happen?
Yes. It varies. So they did this study over a few years, and it's from like 21 days up to 180 days. So it varies. Okay. So basically, the older you get, the longer it's going to take. And then after like 25 years of age, it's incredibly hard to change habits. It needs to be like a traumatic event for you to change your habits. Whereas before that, it's a little bit easier. But as them neural pathways gets ingrained deeper and deeper, they're incredibly hard to change.
So that's where they come in with the old, you can't teach an old dog new tricks sort of thing.
You can, but it takes trauma. So a trauma event will be maybe having a health scare or something like that, or seeing someone pass away because of some sort of disease in your family, and that kicks you up the arse to change.
I think that's... We've always talked about it, is that you have to find an emotional attachment a lot of the time, right? Like there's, like mine was, I think I had a health scare with my heart or something like that, and I thought, well, now's a better time than ever to learn about health, get a bit fitter, that sort of thing. And you know, I think lately, especially, I've been weirdly questioning my mortality. You know, I think life's really precious. Again, you don't want to just go into a big safety bubble and not fucking live, you know, go and do those crazy things. Like, I know you're a big time, like, action sportsman, like, you love doing your surfing and, like, motorbike riding and stuff. And obviously, probably not a lot of people know, but you obviously went through a pretty severe crash on a motorbike. And it's something I obviously want to talk about today. But you know, how did you get through that? Like, what? I know we've talked about it, but
yeah.
you know,
So on mortality, quickly, I've been thinking about that too, and I've got like 30. I think it was 3,300 weeks to go before I die. That's to 85.
No way.
So I've been thinking about it as well.
Yeah.
So that's not a lot of time when you
puts
think
it into
about it.
perspective, hey?
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So every day you just got to jam pack it. It's probably why you hear me so busy all the time. Just packing my days full of just good stuff.
Yeah.
But the crash, so that was probably the best part of my year, because before that this is last year, 2020.
Yep.
Was brutal. So we lost 5 family members in a very short period of time. And then I got hit by a car when I was on my motorbike going home from here. So that was my 2020. And getting through it was, really, really difficult. Definitely the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So I've used a few tools, which is basically gym. Even when I was like first out of hospital, I was in a wheelchair just doing like resistance bands and stuff, trying to keep my food nice and healthy. And then went and seen a psychologist, seen a counsellor / PT, Leon, who you probably know, Body by Leon.
Body by Leon, yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen him as well. Obviously keeping all my mentors really close, and they helped me just sort of drive out of it.
Yeah, and obviously you've got a great partner in Felicia, so
yeah, of course,
she, being there for you every day obviously would have helped. And I know she went through something pretty horrible as well. But you know, it's something where, do you think that crash and everything you had to go through, is that what then had you questioning mortality a little bit?
Yeah, probably. When I was lying in hospital, I think that's when I had a look at how many weeks I've got left to live, and I'm like, holy shit, it's not long. So,
but do you feel like that's made you, like, you haven't changed anything really, have you? Like how you're living, and like you still want to get back on motorbikes and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I want to do all the same stuff. I just want to crank it up a notch.
Okay.
And just go a little bit harder.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because I think, like you said, you want to get living. Like it's when I say that I do question my mortality, I think I need to find a really good, like, happy space in the between, because look, we could die any day. Like I think that's a great motivator to get out of bed and do as much as you can. But at the same time, I think you can find yourself doing too much of the stuff that's not going to give you a long life as well. So whether that's saving money to create wealth, you know, training as if you've got 10 years to look like The Rock or whatever it might be. So, I'm struggling with that a little bit, because I do find myself some days where it's like, oh, I could die tomorrow. I'm just going to do nothing today. Yeah. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do. But there's then those days where I realize, hey, there's a lot of stuff I have to do that I don't want to do to get to where I want to be. Yep. So, you know, talking about that sort of stuff, I think you've got a lot of resources that I've learned from you. I think I took into space that a lot of reading's really good. I know you've given me a few good book recommendations and stuff like that. Yep. So some of those things, like when you went through that 2020 was pretty horrible for a lot of us, but for you, mate, it's fucking terrible. So what, I know you said that, you know, you said you had your mentors and everything and your training. Yep. Was there days there where there was one thing that helped you the most? Would have been the gym, obviously? Yeah, it would have been the gym. Yeah. And just as soon as it happened, I knew it was going to be rough, because I was going to go into surgery and be in hospital for 2 to 3 weeks. So I just sort of mapped out a plan and just set some small goals. Okay. Even though my goals prior to the accident in the gym were quite large, I had to set small goals of just getting resistance bands in for like 15 minutes, and then I can tick that goal off, and then just slowly making the goals bigger and bigger as I got out of it. But the overarching goal was to come out of it mentally and physically stronger than I was going into it, basically. Which I think you have. Like, I've seen a change in you. Like, obviously you've always been a super motivated, hardworking dude, but I can tell that you have turned it up another level, because I've been trying to get you on a podcast for like over a month now, which you haven't been like, no, I don't want to do it. It was more that you were just so fucking busy that you had your whole next, 6 months mapped out or something? I've got the year mapped out. Yeah. I've got it, about 3 weekends off left, and then back into it until close to Chrissy. Yeah, that is crazy. Just with study at the moment, so it's like 20, 25 hours on top of a work week of 50 hours in the industry I'm in. So it's a big week. Yep. And it's good. Can we talk a little bit about like what you do for work, like on a surface level sort of base? Yeah, sure. Yep. So I work at Ewart Advisory. So we're an accounting and advisory firm.
So we just help businesses grow basically.
Nice.
And make sure their compliance is all looked after, and it's really good.
Yeah, so you obviously really enjoy small business stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it's awesome.
Do you think it's almost like a link to watching people grow, on like when you're personal training stuff? It's almost like the same sort of thing where it's that health and wealth sort of mended into one. You can see people grow on another level as well. Yeah.
It's the same thing because it's still you're dealing with that individual that's trying to grow their business.
Yeah, of course.
And then you're setting their goals and mapping it out and making sure they're hitting targets and meeting budgets and all that stuff. So it's the same thing as like being a PT, but for a business.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like same sort of thing, of course. Like, and I guess when you're doing that work, do you get the same sort of reward that you would because you're obviously not doing as much personal training as you used to compared to back in the day, right?
Yeah. No, I'm still doing a little bit.
Yeah.
Just online though.
Yep.
And I just do check-ins on a Saturday morning.
Yep.
So I don't do as much as before, but my goal was always to be doing health, wealth, and look after my relationships and be happy. Like they're the sort of pillars I try and make sure I'm in line with.
Yeah. So would you say that's your because I talked about it last time on the podcast where it's like, I think the biggest thing that helped me was trying to find your purpose. Because if everything that you do each day, if it can align with, like you said, your core principles, I think you've always talked about it where it's like trying to help people with their health and wealth.
Yeah.
That's what's driving you to do everything.
Exactly.
You're doing.
So improve people's lives through health and wealth.
Yeah.
Has been my thing consistently for 9 years now. So I did Cert 3 and 4 in fitness and been personal training since I was 18. So it's about 9 years.
Yep.
And then did financial planning and accounting at uni because that's like the wealth component. And now I'm doing a bit of both together. So it was awesome the other week, run a group fitness class just on the beach behind us.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So that was sort of bringing both of them together. So bringing yield clients and referral partners and just the network together and jump on the beach and do some fitness and then come in the office. And it was awesome. It was like it all started to align. I
was going to say, it must be pretty surreal that for you to put something together in your head, like this is like you want to be here, now that it's all happening and you're sort of there, are you finding it hard to still have those big dreams and goals because you've sort of hit where you wanted to hit essentially? Well, you obviously haven't, you still got a lot more to do, but do you find yourself now that you are doing those things that you initially set out to do, now trying to link up new goals? Are you finding that hard or you've...
it's strange because as you go, I keep setting like bigger goals. Yeah, okay. So the goalpost just keeps moving.
Yeah.
And of course you look back and go, this is awesome. Like I think I'm doing okay, but now the goalpost is so far away, I feel like I'm not doing okay when I'm looking forward.
Yeah, okay.
But I think that's really important because that keeps me busy and keeps me driven and hungry and excited. Because if I've like reached my goal, then what happens now? I'd be sitting here and I'd be bored. So you just got to keep setting targets, and I feel like it keeps my mental health really good and keeps me excited.
Speaking on mental health, because obviously this podcast is very much about that. Speaking pretty candidly, have you been like that last year? Did you discover yourself going through a fair bit of depression and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I was sort of like touching on it, and then each time I did, I'm like, nah, I've got to get myself out of this. So I made sure that I was seeing the right people and people coming to visit me and just made sure that happened. So the psychologist was probably the main one that helped me out of that.
Yep.
And it was only did a couple of sessions and then tried to learn the theory of what she's trying to do with me. And then I'm like, okay, sweet, I got it. See you later. But it was basically what's happening in my mind is my amygdala was like hypersensitive because of all the trauma that happened. So to reduce that sensitivity, you need to like write down what's happened, talk to people about what happened, and then say for my accident, I need to drive past that accident zone constantly.
So revisit the trauma.
Yep.
Okay.
And then your amygdala gets desensitized to it, and that sort of fixes everything, which was really cool. Wow, and if you don't address it, then it'll come out in depression or through your body
anxiety
will let you know.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people think that the anxiety, the depression, whatever, that is the thing, but it's usually caused by your subconscious, the traumas, the things that have happened in the past, right?
That you haven't talked about, because I've always just buried stuff. I'm like, nah, I'll bury it and then move on. And she kept getting me to talk about it. I'm like, wait, I'm not going to talk about it because it's painful. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So you need to tell me why I'm talking about it.
Very
and that's
practical.
why she started to get into the theory. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'll tell you about it now. And then I'll go and write it out because I don't want to go because it's painful to do. But every time you do it, it gets a little bit less painful. And then eventually you can deal with it and depression slows down and anxiety reduces.
Holy shit, that is awesome. And that's actually a really good way to look at it because obviously Joshy and I, when we were talking about it, it was very like on a spiritual sort of level. And it was very, you know, I know you've always been a very practical sort of guy and that breaks it down perfectly. For me, like that, I understand that really well now. So, because I know it's something that a lot of guys don't feel comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason...
Oh, it's painful to talk about. That's why I buried it for so long.
Yeah.
But to fix it and moving forward, you need to talk about it with your friends or your family or whoever you feel comfortable with, or go see a psychologist. It's worth the investment, and then just get it out so that you can move on and you won't have them issues come back in other forms.
Why do you think it's so hard for us guys to go to psychologists and that sort of thing, or talk about it with other people?
It's probably just like a cultural thing. Like we just seem to bury it and go, harden up, bro, and move on and that sort of stuff.
Worried about the judgment stuff?
Yeah.
Which is crazy, man, because I think as much as society's grown within that space, I still find that it's still tough, man. It's still tough to get guys to understand that it's okay. It's okay to cry in front of your mates or say, hey, look, I'm fucking struggling. I'm really going through a tough time, which I, you know, myself, I went last year was tough, man. Like my girlfriend was locked out of the country for 10 months. Like my soulmate, it's like half of my body was ripped apart. And I had heaps of people I could reach out to because I was happy to do it. I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't, oh no, I can't tell Tice or yourself or Christian, whoever it might be. I can't say those things because they'll judge me. Yep. Never any of that. I wasn't worried about that. So obviously a good support network's huge. Maybe if you're within a circle that aren't as understanding, or, you know, you've always talked about, nah, mate, just harden up, like you said. I feel like that's getting better. It's starting to, more blokes are reaching out. But it's still really bad, man. There's still a lot of suicide. There's still a lot. And I talked about it in my last one where I've been at that stage where I just thought there was no end to it. And I thought about doing it, which I think I've talked about in the past, where it's kind of like when you're on a footy field. You know, like you can see the play in front of you or the guys trying to tackle you, but you don't see all the other guys around you could pass the ball to. But your coach or whoever's looking in said, why didn't you fucking pass it? But when you're in that deep, dark space, all you see is this like black tunnel. You just, it's tunnel vision. Like the only way you see out is that way. So to come out of that is a really hard thing, but the support network and having those guys, like you said, and taking it to a practical level, you really helped me with the training. That's awesome. That's the thing that's changed my life, 100%. If I had to give the best tool, tips and resources, that I would just say, just train. Literally, it's not even only the release of all the good endorphins and everything. It's just like the fact that you have something that you can lean on. And, you know, like even training a few times a week, that's all you need, right? Yep. Exactly. Do you think even just going for walks can help?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And probably I didn't touch on my third thing before, but it would have been vitamin D. Getting enough of it, so getting a bit of sun or supplementing it if you can't get enough sun. Yeah. Because vitamin D is just so important for how you feel and your happiness and how you sleep and everything like that. So I reckon if everyone had enough vitamin D in their system, coronavirus would just flow through and would all be good.
And isn't it scary, dude, that they're saying that you should stay inside? Like people like in Canada, they're in lockdown.
It's making it worse,
Yeah, and their bodies can't be healthy because they're not getting vitamin D, which is one of the most important. And can you supplement it? Like, is there supplements?
You can, yeah.
It's not the same as getting the real thing though, right?
No. Yeah. Like the sun's free and it's better for you, so just get even half an hour a day sort of thing. It's just so good for you. So I reckon we're in a bit of a vitamin D pandemic at the moment, not a coronavirus pandemic.
It's actually a really good way to put it, yeah. So, I mean, as we've gone off on that, you know, talk about mental health, which is great. I really wanted to talk about that with you because I knew you could break it down practically. I love that about you. So I guess if I keep this podcast a little bit on track, because I do like to keep it pretty raw and real, but if you could talk about the biggest influences in your life, is there a couple of people that you want to mention and how they've influenced you? I know you mentioned Adam.
Yep.
Would you say that he's been a big proponent in how you are and why you are where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. So I went to Adam when I was probably 17, close to 18 years old. And I took him, I just had no idea what I was doing. Took him a business plan and said, this is what I want to do. I want to sell you supplements and have people work under me and do all this. And he's like, do you want a job? I'm like, yes, that'd be awesome. So I got a job with him, and that's how it all started at Total Sports Nutrition. And then started working for him full time.
Yep.
And then started training with him. And then I look back at I was like 60 kilos and just didn't look like I trained at all. I'm like, I don't know what he's seen in me, but I think it was just the drive that I had, and that was it, pretty much. So, and then, we've been good mates ever since. So, and then from a business perspective, it'll be Lachlan Ballinger, my boss at Yield Advisory. So I was personal training him when I was at uni, and then similar thing happened. He goes, do you want to come do work experience? And I was like, yep. And then got a job at the end of that. So that was really cool.
And
similar.
See, it's crazy that you're now where you are now because people took a chance on you because they saw what you had. It wasn't going off your resume. It wasn't going off what have you done in your life. They just saw something in you. Which is cool, man.
And then I think it comes down to going back to that drive that I had, like when I think about my dad and all that stuff, that's where it comes from. It's like a really deep level of drive. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's a genetic thing because my auntie and stuff just works her guts out, and my dad did as well. And it was crazy. I think he didn't have the right balance. I think he worked too hard and didn't play enough, and I think that's where things went sour. And so I just need to make sure that balance is right, which you probably say, no, mate, you're not doing it right at the moment. But this feels balanced for me, working most of the year with no days off. That's like my balance.
And everyone's different, right? Like that's like you said, it works for you. Maybe someone like myself, I'm different. I like to say I work 4 days straight, go hard, grind, all my little hustles I've got. But then I need a day where I just do fucking nothing, a game or whatever. For me, gaming is a form of meditation. And scientifically proven, from what I've seen, this is my own experience, is that what it does is that it actually brings you to the present. You know, it makes me focus on the game I'm playing, on the problems that are involved. And it might sound silly because a lot of mums and dads are like, that. And it can be toxic. Gaming can be toxic because a lot of kids can just end up doing it hours on end and doing nothing. But it just brings you to the present. Because my whole thing I've always struggled with is anxiety, which is thinking about stuff that hasn't happened yet. So you're in the future. So if I bring myself to the present, I feel good for a day, or go up into nature or something like that. So I like that. I like that for you it's balance. Not everyone's the same.
I have burnt out like one time properly officially. Yeah, okay. So it was cool not cool, but to know what a burnout actually is.
What is burnout for you?
Burnout is flogging yourself so hard that you just like laying on the ground crying. When I was in Brisbane and just couldn't handle it because I had so much going on at that time. I was studying. I was still running a different business, working at Yield full time, buying a property at the same time. Hadn't had a day off in months. And then, it all just hit me. And it was strange. It wasn't just a mental thing. My body was just like, I was shaking. And that's when I knew I hit burnout officially. And that's been a really handy tool looking back of it, because now when I start to feel that burnout, I pull back. Yeah, cool. So using tools like Wim Hof has helped a lot, that breathing techniques every night before bed. And also the recovery room at O2.
O2,
yeah. Which is just like a sauna and then cold bath, almost ice bath sort of thing. Yep. So that's helped. So I feel like I can recover now but do it faster using them different tools.
Man, that's so cool and I hope everyone's listening to that. This is a second guest now that's talked about Wim Hof and the ice baths and everything. So, and for you to go through something so intense, dude, that your body shut down as well.
It was full on.
Oh, was it like a panic attack almost? I don't know if you...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. I was just freaking out and my body just shut down.
Trembling and stuff?
Yeah. I was in Brisbane working in the valley, and I had to call Felicia. She was on the sunny coast, and get her to come down and make sure I was not going to...
Okay,
yeah.
Did you feel like you were going to die almost?
No, it was just body shutting down. I was shaking, and mine was just like full migraines and stuff. And yeah.
Isn't it crazy, man, that came from you thinking about all the stuff that you're doing, and it overwhelmed you to the point where your body shut down. That's insane. You, like you said, I feel like most people that go through that then learn from that, right? Like you said, you learn from that. You now have that as a reminder that, you need to pull it back sometimes. And it's okay to do that, to do nothing or go surf or go on a holiday with your missus. Like, if you need to do that, do it.
Yep.
Which is
I think I was trying to test the boundaries a little bit, because in the gym you can test your boundaries, because you won't be able to lift the weight anymore if your body's cooked. Like if you're squatting and stuff, you know your limits, because you can't physically get up and your spot has to come in and help you. But mentally, I didn't know where the limit was. So I'm like, am I actually working harder? So I just kept working harder and harder and harder and harder until I knew that moment was the point. That I've overdone it, which is a good thing, because I was probably like, before I was testing this out, maybe working at 60% of my potential. And then I went to 110, and now I know I can sit comfortably at 80%. And when I hit 90, 95, I need to pull it back a little bit.
That is cool.
But it's still a big gap from 60% where I was sitting before.
And that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with. Because we both listen to a lot of millionaires, like all these entrepreneurs, all this sort of stuff, and they talk about, you got to grind like 20 hours a day, sleep 4 hours, like, and you think like, how is that physically possible? And then I start questioning myself. I think I work hard, but do I? Because I start, I see you working, and I'm like, I don't work anywhere near as hard as Jake. But then I look at other people and I work harder than them. But then I'm sitting there judging myself and never really finding, where am I happy with? Like, what is my like level of hard work?
I think just compare yourself to you.
Yeah, of course. So you should always be just to yourself. Like, are you better than yesterday? Yeah. Are you better than a year ago? Because I look back, I think I said it the other day, where I look back 10 years and I'm like, I've come a long way, man. Like, I'm a different human being. So I see that as progress. Also, do I sound all right? Like, you can hear me all right?
You sound good. Yeah.
Because I'm almost hearing like I'm just like fading out when I talk.
No.
You can hear this bassy voice.
No, you sound good.
Cool. Yeah, so obviously you had that burnout, but you talked about, how to bring it back. What's your bringing it back? Like, how do you then, say you've had a hard couple of weeks at work, what helps you relax?
It'll be, instead of finishing at like 7 o'clock, I'll pull it back, try and finish on time about 5, have the night off, go to the recovery room, do a bit of Wim Hof. And that's pretty much me pulling back. Nice. And then I scheduled in Wednesday morning as just rest, and then Saturday morning until 10 rest. Sunday afternoon, I do a lot of prep now, which is sort of like rest from 3 o'clock. And that's helped a lot, whereas before there just wasn't them little blocks of rest.
Yeah, okay. So there's a lot of rest in there, but it's involved with those things where you're not necessarily doing nothing. You're doing things to help your body recover, whether it's physically or mentally, which is really cool. And I mean, if you had, because you're obviously on a path to like greatness, I would say. Sounds a bit cheesy.
Don't know about that.
It sounds a bit cheesy, but I feel like you're going to do big things. But I know there's a lot of people out there, whether they're young or old, a lot of people with big dreams too. But if you could give them a few, like, I guess, tools or resources that could help them on that path. So we always talk together about like with videos you've watched or books you've read or things that you do. Yep. What are some things that they could do to help them through that?
Well, I'll just tell you what I'm doing, which I think it'll bring everyone incredible value. And it's something called like board of directors. Okay. And then, so I have a group of people that are my board of directors for my life. And then every quarter I report to them. So I set my longer term goals and break that down into quarterly goals, and then break down that into daily goals. But basically, the board of directors is just people you look up to and admire, and you email them at the start of the quarter and say, this is my goals for the quarter. And then at the end, you report back to them and say, this is what I've achieved, this is what I didn't achieve. And then you set your new goals for the quarter moving forward. So that is like an overarching accountability system. Is just been life-changing for me. I've just really cranked everything up a notch because of that, because I don't want to let these boys down. Yeah. So that's been the best thing I've ever done. And that idea comes from Jack Daly, a seminar I went and watched a bit over 2 years ago. And I've been following that system for close to 8 quarters now at the end of June. So 2 years. And yeah, that breaks everything down. So I've got my vision, and then I've got my health goals, wealth goals, relationship goals, and then I just call it like happiness, which is just bucket list items.
Yep.
And then, so the list of all them goals for the individual columns will flow through the board of directors accountability system, so I actually get the most out of my quarters.
Man, that is
It's
awesome.
like having a New Year's resolution, but shorter time frame.
Yeah.
Because most people's
Fall
New
off.
Year's resolution, like you say it and then nothing happens. Whereas this, you've got a back end to it and you've shortened the time frame. So you set your goals, but you're accountable to like 5 people or however many board of directors you want for your life. Shorten the time frame and you have to report back to them.
That is sick. I love that. I've never heard that. I think you may have spoken about it, but now that I've heard that fresh in my mind,
Yep.
I'm going to get one straight away.
It's crazy.
Does it have to be people that are in your same sort of space, or just people that you look up to doing the same sort of stuff that you're doing? Or
Yep. So for me, it had to meet criteria of having health, wealth, good relationships, and then they're also happy and have a healthy mind.
Yeah, right.
And then whoever met that criteria got put in there, sort of thing. So
Can you talk about who's in your space?
yeah, so Adam Bryant's in there.
Yep, that's it.
Lachlan Ballinger,
So your
who
two
owns
mentors that have
Yield
had huge
Advisory.
impacts.
Yep. And then we've got Jared Lawrence. He owns Wow Wipes. And then Paul from Paul's Body Engineering, Paul Hooper.
Jesus, what a group of mentors, man. Or mates as well, because
Yep. And Stanley Sinclair as well.
Stanley
Is a mechanical engineer. And he's been a mate since playgroup.
Dude. So that's some pretty high-end people you've got there in there. That's awesome. And I've met most of them now. Really good dudes. Like,
Yep.
Especially Jared, man. Like what he's doing with Wow Wipes is awesome. You know, to come, because he played in the NRL, right, for a bit with the Raiders and stuff. So he's obviously a high-performance athlete he still trains really hard. And I think I heard it on that Impact Theory podcast where Tom Bilyeu talks about most successful people that he meets, they're usually jacked. They're usually like fit, healthy.
Yep.
And I think that comes part and parcel, right? Like with success, usually you know that you have to look after yourself physically and mentally to be able to handle everything that comes with being successful or trying to become successful. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think everything relates back to training, right? Because you talk about that, it's the accountability factor.
Yep.
When Christian and I were doing our Arcadian thing, we just had test clients. We found that even though we didn't really know what we were doing, I found that the feedback that they gave us was that we did so much for them just for the pure fact that we were there every day for them.
Yep.
You know, we had a space where they could talk. It was just like a Facebook group where they could chat and tell us about their stuff.
Yep.
Obviously, Christian was the one giving all the advice because he was a qualified PT. But I was there for the emotional stuff. I could chat back and, you know, hey, how you doing? Like, what's going on?
Yep.
And even for you, bro, for you, when you were there for me for a lot of that stuff, just to be able to message you on Facebook and be like, hey, man, I'm struggling today or training, whatever it might be. And you just had the right words to say. It didn't even have to be anything special. It was just, all right. But it was also straight up.
Yeah.
Because one thing I'm finding is that, and I think we've talked about this before, where you need to get the people, you need to train the people that are willing to make the sacrifices and the changes. Because there's a lot of fucking excuses that I've heard in the past. And now I pick up on it really quickly too.
Yep.
I had a chat to my mate who's I think he was in the British military, very straightforward guy, awesome guy, Tommy, and he sort of said, you know, you've always been this nice guy, Trav. That's great. But there's going to be people that are going to take the piss and take your time away from you who aren't actually going to, you know, make the most of that time that you're giving to them as well. Yep. So, and he sort of said it like, if he asked, what's most important to me? And I said, Tamara, straight up. It's like, my missus.
Yep.
And he said, okay, so what if she's 50 metres out in the water and you becoming successful and making money is you swimming out to save her? So what if all these people are out there grabbing onto you and stopping you from, you know, saving her, swimming out there? He said, what if that during real life is, hey, Trav, can I talk to you? Or can you come meet up or help me or whatever it might be?
Yep.
But they don't actually listen to what you're telling. And you've just given them 2-3 hours of your time or a couple of days a week.
Yep.
They're not doing anything with it. That's them holding you back from doing what you want to do.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that because everyone they can consume your time quite easily.
Of course. And, you know, look, I'm happy to help and I know you are. But you also want to be knowing that you're giving help to people that are actually, you know, respecting your time, respecting you as a human being and what you've done to get to the point where you are. because your time is valuable. Everyone's time is valuable.
Yep.
So when you have to deal with that sort of stuff, when you know, like, because I'm sure now, because you're so efficient with your time, how do you say no to people? I think a lot of people, and this is what I'm picking up from a lot of mates and people that I'm meeting, they find it very hard to say no to some things, whether it's, hey, let's go out this weekend, let's get pissed, or, hey, man, can you come help me for a couple of hours? And look, again, not saying don't help your mates, but there's a point where it's okay to say no.
Yep. Yeah, I've struggled with that. And just, if it's work-wise, I'll just be like, yep. And then I'll burn out really bad.
Yeah.
But now, if it's something to do with work and I don't have the capacity, I just refer it to someone else.
Okay.
And then if it's going out for drinks and stuff, I have to just say no and tell them why. And if they're my mate, they'll still be there at the other end, sort of thing. Yeah. So, yeah, I've been a lot more candid the last couple of years because I was a bit softer and sort of went with the flow, and then you waste a lot of time doing that.
Yep.
So, and I've watched a mentor and how he deals with that stuff, and it just makes a lot of sense how he does it. Someone asks him, he goes, no, I can't, sorry, and then moves on with the convo. And I'm like, you know what, that's fair enough. You don't have to provide a reason.
No.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm taking a little bit more of that approach of just being honest and being like, no, I can't, sorry. I just want to relax and watch movies with Felicia or whatever it is instead of trying to, work with them and stuff. So it's a little bit more savage, but...
Oh, mate, but like you said, if they're your friend, they understand. You don't have to sit there and give some bullshit excuse like, it's my hamster's birthday. Like, there's always some like...
You got a hamster?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, excuse me. Nah. But like, I used to be real bad with it because my anxiety and stuff and being the nice guy, it was always like, oh, sorry, man, I'm a bit sick today. That's a real common one. You know, I'm a bit sick.
Yep.
And look, this isn't calling anyone out in particular because I know that life, it is hard to say no. Like, I'm still getting good at it. But I found that it's also made my life a lot easier to just say, sorry, man, I can't. I'm busy. Or whatever it might be, like you just said, sorry, I can't, and just continue on. Like, because if they understand, if they're your mate, if they're truly your friend, they understand you're trying to achieve things and whatever. Yep. And yes, there's times where you need to be like, okay, I need to fuck work off for a bit. I need to go spend time because maintaining relationships, like you said, you need to find those times where you go to the birthdays, you go to the work party drinks, or keep those relationships strong because. I do also meet a lot of people who talk about, oh, no, I don't deal with people now. I can't stand people. And it's like, if you're like that, you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You need to network. You need to make friends. You need to have a support network. I get the whole, like, being an independent person and being strong. Yeah, of course, that's awesome. But, you're only as good as the people around you. Yep. I find that that's I've only gotten anywhere in life is meeting cool people like yourself and... some of my best mates, bro. I wouldn't be where I am without my support network. So I'd be stupid to say that I've gotten here by myself because it's not the case. I've done a lot by myself, but without the amazing people I've met, it just wouldn't happen. So
the other thing too is like if they say, oh, do you want to come out for drinks? You just go, oh, no, do you want to come to gym though tomorrow in the morning and just try and shape it so fits in with your lifestyle maybe.
What do you do if they give you a shit excuse?
No, it's fine. Just move on.
Yeah, because you can't force people. I know I'll talk about this pretty openly, but I'm a very, I'm talking about all my Wim Hof and like the books I read, the Gary Vee stuff, and myself and Tamara are very different in that space. Like I love Tams, but she's not into all that sort of stuff, and I think it's good. I think it's a great balance because she brings me back down. She tells me to shut up sometimes. I'm like, I don't care. Like I don't want to listen, which is fine. I'll never press on her to try to become what I am or what I'm trying to do. But what would you say to people that if they have, say, friends and family that don't believe in what they're doing, how do you keep pushing through? Do you need to find those mentors like those guys to keep you accountable like you've just mentioned? Like that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, well, that's what I've done and it's working well and it like pushes you a lot harder and the biggest thing is just having a time frame to work towards. Because if I set a goal of buying, say, an investment property and don't say when, it might be 3 years down the track. If I say it, I have to do it this quarter, it's going to happen, sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's timelines.
Timelines and accountability.
Yeah, because I watch your your trajectory of what you're trying to do, and I've noticed that Felicia's come on board though. You know, she's now very entrepreneurial. You know, like she's gone away from her full-time job. She's
awesome.
She's doing her own thing. And
Yep.
do you think that, like, did you feel like you had to push her to do those things, or she just sort of saw what you were doing, or just started to openly just think, I can do this? Like, she started to believe in herself.
Yep. I'm not sure. I definitely don't try to like push her into stuff. I just hope that people, if they see me and get motivated from it, that's awesome. I think that's maybe what's happened. She's gone, okay. And then sort of told me about the idea. I'm like, yep, do it. That's awesome. You can do this. And then just keep reinforcing the belief in herself, because that's the hardest thing, is believing that you can go out, and it's a big leap from a full-time job into just no income source sort of thing. So she's getting the belief into her that she can actually do it, and then just, going from there, basically.
You must be so proud of her, man, because like...
she's doing really well.
Yeah, she's killing it. And I mean, you know, it just goes to show that, like, if you want to do something, you just need someone to believe in you. Because when I was trying to lose that weight and change my life and do whatever, look, again, I had a great support network, but I needed that person to take me to the next level, which was you at the time. So, mate, I can't thank you enough. I've said it plenty of times, but, like, that was my turning point when we were doing that training together. I've never been a vain person, but to be able to post a picture and finally fucking feel like I've changed, to see that before and after picture, I get why they're so big. I'm also in a space where I don't really care how people look. I want people to be fit, healthy, and happy. And usually the nice body and stuff comes with that, right? But I feel like people get really caught up in the whole, why don't I look like such and such? Why don't I look like that? Because they see all these Fitspo models and like influencers and shit. And it becomes very toxic very quickly. What would you say to those people that they find themselves struggling because they're scrolling through Instagram, they're waking up, getting on their phone, like, oh, look what such and such is doing. Like,
the biggest thing is just comparing yourself to you, because I see it as well. Like, I scroll through the feeds and stuff, and you're like, this guy's 21, he's multi-millionaire, and you just feel like a piece of shit. And you're like, what is going on? I've been working so hard, and people are doing better than me, and you just got to snap out of that and just focus on yourself. Less social media, get that type group to work with, and just focus on moving forward yourself.
Yeah, and that's, you can always go back to the old comparing to yourself, right? Because I was listening to Ed Milet with Tom Bilyeu, and Ed talks about his morning ritual where he doesn't touch his phone for like half an hour at least. You know, when you wake up, there's people that I'm sure, I'm guilty of it sometimes, just wake up and like, oh, what's happening today? And straight away you see something negative and it's like, boom, you react to it. I'm good at coming out of that now because I need to react to that feeling, understand what it is. But there's something I learnt from the Heavy Checklist from Heavy D. I don't know if you've heard.
No, I haven't.
It was this podcast I heard, man, where it was like, they gave him this practical tool where it's like, you had that thought, all right, cool. Grab it, imagine it, chuck it up on the shelf. You've recognized it, chuck it there and let it sit there. It's there now. It's not with you, it's there. So without letting it affect you for your whole day, you've just got it chilling up in your little memory bank or whatever, like just that little cupboard. So
that's what I've heard, but from different angles is watch the thought come through, capture it, and then like shoot it in a hoop. So that'd be a good one for you.
Yeah,
like
a little bit of a hooper. I know, I'm pretty good, Rad. So I think that...
Are you though? Because you show videos. What about the other clips? Like the 50 clips prior?
I hit every time, bro.
Because we see these awesome ones. I'm like, did it take 130 videos to get that in? Or no, you are good.
No. Without the net, I need a net there. That's all that happens.
I'm joking. You are good. I've seen you in Rebel. But I just always picture, I'm like, has he been doing this for like 3 days trying to get... And then he finally gets a good shot and he's like, look at me.
That's good. Nah, fair call. Call me out. I like it.
I'm joking.
Fuck it. So coming off the back of like all those, like, you know, you've given all these practical tools and that sort of thing, but I think moving forward as you're getting closer to 30, I hear a lot of things where people are like, oh, it's too late for me. Me working at Rebel, I still do a couple of days a week there because I actually really enjoy it. I love meeting people and their stories and that sort of thing. And going off the back of what I heard the other day, I was talking to this guy, or this couple, awesome couple, man. Like, I sort of chatted about what I'm doing, and they think it's awesome, but I'm sitting there thinking, it's not that cool. I'm not where I want to be. It sounds awesome, but... And they were getting you could tell they were getting a bit like, oh, why can't we do that? And I was like, well, you can do that. Like even though you're like 48, 50, who cares? Like you're still alive. Like you still, if you're not worried about what other people think, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yep.
So do you find that a lot, that people think that there's a time limit on when to start, what to do? I know there's one of your clients that really inspired me, Shano.
Yep.
And the change that he made. What did you notice with that? Because the amount of work that he put in, what was the biggest difference you saw? Because it was a big mental shift for him, obviously, going from what he was to what he is now and what he's doing. So talk about his journey a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I met Shane at Workout World. That was before Rebel Days. I met a lot of good people through there, like Lachlan. That's how I met him, and then started training him based on that conversation. Same with Shane. Shane comes in and we have a chat, and I think I showed him a couple of exercises and stuff, and he's like, "You a PT?" I'm like, "Yep, I am." And he's obviously got some gym equipment at home, and he's like, "Oh, I should hit you up and we should do a session one day." I'm like, "What about tomorrow, Monday?" He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come over tomorrow. We'll go through a session." And he's just like, "Holy shit!"
Ooh, he's calling me out.
Yeah, the next day I went over to his house, and that was day one of it's like almost 4 years of training together. And yeah, his first 30 weeks were just insane, the changes. Yeah.
Because he was a big guy, right? Like
Yeah, he was.
Do you remember how much he weighed originally?
Oh, he's in the 90s, yeah.
Yep.
And then pulled it down at like 78 kilos.
Was he compete? Like he competed, right?
He went in a transformation show.
Yep.
And got second.
That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah.
Dude, and is he coaching now? He's a PT?
Yes, he is, yeah. So, which is pretty incredible.
Dude,
so he's
how old, Shane?
He's close to 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's never too late to change.
No, like, and I love that. I love that he just, and all it took was that say yes.
Yep.
You know, like
sort of. I sort of went, I'll see you tomorrow. But the best thing about going to people's houses, you can go through their cupboard and tip shit down the drain, and it's pretty funny. I think he had like orange juice, and then I just poured it down the drain, and yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
We only trained 3 days a week, and it was just intense, but the biggest thing is always just your diet, nutrition, and he nailed that, and then the results followed.
With your training 3 times a week, is that just resistance training?
Yep.
Yeah,
just resistance.
No real cardio.
No cardio there at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, people say you need it, right? But resistance training's fine, right? Get your nutrition right, get your sleep good.
But with resistance training, like your heart rate comes up just as high as when you're doing cardio.
If you're training hard enough, right?
Yeah, if you're training hard enough. And then the biggest difference is you finish cardio and then your muscle stimulation is like recovered fairly quickly. But with weights, it can last up to 36 hours of constant like tear of the muscles and elevated metabolic rate and stuff like that. So the benefits are well after you finish your session.
Yeah, I love that. And like you said, 3 days a week.
Yep.
I'm guessing
they were intense sessions.
Like 45 to an hour?
They were an hour, but they were pretty tough for Shane, not me. But yeah.
Oh, man.
No, it was good.
That must feel good, though, like to physically see someone change that you've helped, which now I'm guessing you've helped heaps of people. And when I was training with you, how many clients did you have roughly?
I think it was 20 to 25, but I was studying uni at the time.
Yeah, and working at Rebel still.
And working and trying to pay a mortgage and all that good stuff. So, yeah, that was enough to handle.
Yeah.
Now I've just got a handful because I've just time poor.
Yeah.
But I still keep an eye on all my clients and make sure because my goal is like long-term results, not just quick fixes.
Yeah, well, I love that fact because I think a lot of people think that doing all these 8-week challenges and stuff, like it's cool in the interim, but you hit that goal, you lose the 15 kilos, whatever you do before and after, you won the F45 challenge. Yeah. And that's not knocking that stuff. Like, that's awesome. It's good to see, but you're not giving it enough time, I think. This is like from my personal experience that I think it took me about 12 weeks. About 12 weeks, about the 3-month period where those habits were like in place. They were instilled. And you're obviously a big habits guy. Do you think the only way to get those habits is the discipline, someone keeping you in check, and making sure you're doing it week after week after week? And then once you've done it, do you think that 3-month period's about roughly what you'd need minimum? Or
everyone's different. Like Shane and Kim, I reckon, like they were incredible and kept them accountable in detail for about 2 years before I was like, okay, I think this is going to be a long-term change for this family. So 2 years was my time frame for them. But everyone's different.
Yeah, of course.
I think the younger you are, the quicker that you'll see changes in habits, as we talked about before. But yeah, I've seen 2 years, and then I was comfortable that it was going to be a long-term change.
And that's, now you're at the point now. So we've obviously talked a lot about a lot of different things, but I'd like to keep this one nice and efficient, like you are. But at this point where I'd love to give the real value, where it's like, okay, you're talking about your health and wealth and helping everyone want to hit those goals. If you could talk about some of the tips, tools, and the best tips, tools, and resources that have helped you. Because we're obviously talking about personal experiences here. What would you give those people out there listening? What are some of the things they need to be doing?
So the first one is what I said, the accountability system. It doesn't have to be exactly what I've said, but put something in place with timeframes and people to keep you accountable. So that'll overarch your health, wealth, and other goals that you might have. And then health specific, what I've done, I did Cert 3 and 4 in fitness, and then basically finding a good training partner was just the health side of things. And there's so much good content just on YouTube that you can learn about. But I'd recommend just doing Cert 3 at least for anyone, just to not go and be a PT, but just like your health is so important. This course is, how long does it take? 8 weeks or 10 weeks?
Nothing,
part-time, so you can still work. And health is the most important thing in your life. Just put a couple of weeks aside for that to really understand how to get your nutrition and training right. So that's probably like the health component. So it's not great advice there, but that's just what I've done. And then, or just go and see a PT, a really good one like Adam Bryant or yourself that can help you out with the nutrition and stuff, and get a really good understanding of how it works and think of long-term progress sort of thing, not just short-term quick fix. Health, wealth side of thing, similar stuff. It's just setting goals, and then the biggest thing there is just monitoring like your cash flow. I do it on a monthly basis. So you can either just like print out Excel reports from your bank account and do up a little profit and loss for yourself and set some targets there. So I make calendar budgets for myself, and then so I'll map that out for the year. And then every month I'll just go through, I use a program called Xero, which is more like an accounting program, but there's heaps of apps and stuff you can use that pull your bank feeds through to the app. So you can have a look at your profit and loss every month and just make sure you're on track and you're saving, and then any savings you've got, just try and invest it. And when it comes to investing, probably go see just a financial planner, someone that does fee for service and there's no commissions involved, so that you know that their goal is in line with yours sort of thing. And there's plenty of good financial planners out there. And then, basically start investing as early as possible with the right advice. Investing is sacrificing what you have now for something better later. Later is not next week or next month. You should be thinking 10 to 15 years sort of thing, especially with property. You need at least 10 years for a property sort of thing. So
you'd say property is obviously one of the biggest things to get into?
I love property. There's a few different reasons. Is you can leverage it up quite comfortably, so using debt. And there won't be margin calls if the property market starts to pull back quite quickly. The other thing is taking the emotion out of it as well, because when you're in stocks, you can check the price of what it's worth, like by the minute sort of thing. So you see it go down and you get fearful and you might sell, and it comes up and you might get greedy and start buying. And it's very, very difficult to get rid of that unless you've done a lot of study to help you think just pure logically and not get emotionally involved. So that's why property is a good bet, because you buy it, you sit there, you can't see the price fluctuate on a minutely basis sort of thing. And property just makes a lot of sense. In 15 years, 20 years, people are still going to need a house to live in and a place to live. Whereas businesses, we don't know what's going to be around in 10, 15 years. Technology is moving so quickly, we don't know what's going to be out there. So I just jump into index funds. Have you heard of them?
I haven't, no.
So that's just basically heaps of big companies pulled together, and you just buy a chunk of that. So you own heaps of different companies. And they pay out dividends, and you get a little bit of capital growth there as well. So make that a lot of your portfolio. And a really good book to read there is Tony Robbins, called Unshakable.
Oh, the OG.
Nice. So that's a really good one. He goes around to the best wealth managers in the world, interviews them all, and puts together this book, just advice for the everyday person. And he basically says you can't outpace the market, which is basically like the index fund. So don't try to get fancy with buying individual companies, because you're just going to get crushed.
Yep.
And then with like day trading and stuff, when you look at, Intelligent Investor or something, by Warren Buffett studies this. He's one of the wealthiest guys in the world. You probably heard about him.
Yeah, a little bit.
But he reckons about 5% of the people that day trade will make money. The rest lose money over time. So we're talking about your mate earlier that invested in cryptocurrencies and stuff and made a bit of coin.
Yep.
What Warren Buffett says that over time, unless he's in that top 5%, he's going to lose money.
Okay.
Because you'll make money and then you'll keep going back until you lose money.
Is that the emotional side?
That's the emotional side with trading. That's why property's so good, because it takes that emotion out of it. Because, there's quite large like transaction costs getting into property and out of property. And it's not something that you'll buy and sell frequently. It's something that you should just buy and hold long term. And property just looks amazing on a spreadsheet, basically.
Yeah, it gives you
when you
plenty
map
of
it
equity to work with, obviously.
Yeah. So
that's awesome, man. I love that, and it's practical. It's practical. Like I think that's everyone tries to overcomplicate life. I think, and I think when you're given these sort of practical little tips, tools, and resources, which that's what I want this show to be about. Obviously, we're talking about our stories, what we've been through, and people can take a lot from that because they may have been through similar situations. But at the end of the day, if I can provide value through guys like yourself, that's all I want to do, man.
Yep.
I know I'm not. I always want to be the dumbest dude in the room. 100%. Wherever I go, I want to be the idiot in the room. And Simon Sinek talks about that, where the only way you're going to learn is if you learn from people smarter than you. If you fail, I'm happy to fail. I just want to be learning all the time.
It's awesome. The other book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is probably the first one that you should get into. It's incredibly popular.
I think
it's a finance one.
Yeah.
So it sort of just shifts your mindset. That's a really good one to start with, and then Tony Robbins would be the next one.
Yeah.
Just as they're a good one for everyone.
Isn't it crazy that there's so much free information on this stuff? Like whether it's a podcast, YouTube, books. I think from my experience so far, YouTube's probably been my biggest one, because that's the way I learn it best. If I can physically see them, I can write down stuff. Books are awesome because obviously I'm going through highlighting stuff and going back and just rereading it. So I think if anyone really wants to learn anything, they can. There's no excuses really. Like there's no excuses why. If you want to be such and such, all that information's there. All these people are out there that are giving the value constantly. So
absolutely. So biggest thing there, number one, know your cash flow and your financial position. So know what your balance sheet looks like at a personal level. So your assets and then your liabilities, and then what your monthly cash flow looks like. So that'd be step one. Then step two is, if your cash flow's looking good and you got some savings, go see a financial planner, because that will help you get around all the like emotional trickery that there is when investing.
Yep.
And you pay a couple grand for their services, but over 5-10 years, it could make just an incredible difference.
You got to look at that return on investment, hey?
Yeah.
I think that's like anything, man. Like you look at your return on investment in going to the gym 3 times a week. Look at it 5 years down the track.
Yeah.
How good do you look? How good do you feel? So I love that, dude. But man, honestly, we wanted to keep it around an hour. This one, last one went for about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do that again. I will with Joshy. We'll do that again eventually, because it was more of that type of conversation. But I wanted this to be a really good practical conversation. Get a bit of real stuff out, get some value from it. But that's been perfect, dude. So I appreciate that.
It's awesome. Thanks for having me.
Jake.
Legend.
Thanks, brother.